Hi friends, welcome back. We are still on Kelly's campus with Women in Business hosting us tonight. Anna is returning. We are doing some Q&A with our friends on Instagram. Shout out to the girls in the room who have submitted questions, with more to come. We kind of started teasing some of this before we got started, but Anna, thank you for coming back.
Of course.
I know it was a long trip.
Yeah.
From the water to here.
Sure
Thank
was.
you. But we're gonna kick it off with this first question about finance. How did your degree in finance translate to what you do today? And were there any hurdles that came along with that?
Yeah, so this is actually a huge topic with me being a founder in residence at IU Innovates now, because I definitely felt pretty unsupported in entrepreneurship with Kelly when I was here. Um, uh, Finance was definitely really curated towards private equity. Even if you wanted to do a startup lens just on the venture capital side and you wanted to be a venture capital investor, there really wasn't a lot of startup talk within that. It was really private equity. It was really Fortune 500 focused, large team focused. And we did talk a little bit about convertible notes and safe notes, but definitely not in a way that was actually mostly my economics classes, not even necessarily my finance classes. That we talked about that kind of investment instrument, which is primarily how I received investment into my startup. I will say that there were two really positive things. One is when you talk about large enterprises buying other companies, you kind of learn that that large enterprise has already been aligned with the company that they're buying it from and the problem that they're solving. It's not necessarily that this company came to them and said, hey, we're solving this problem. Can you buy us for $500 million? It's really like they've already been in tandem with where they see the industry going and knowing that this was something that they either needed to solve themselves or have someone else solve it for them. And I feel like that was really applicable with my relationship with Goodwill, is that, as soon as we got into that meeting, we had a meeting of minds on where we saw the larger secondhand industry going, and the fact that they wanted to put 2 million items on their website, and we're kind of starting to see the problem that I was solving with people finding it in a relevant way to them. And so I feel like that was a good learning here. The second learning, which was in iCore and marketing, I really learned about analysis paralysis. And that was kind of also, how I learned about the issue within secondhand. And, if you have the main problem with secondhand is that everything's a single SKU. So it's a quantity of one. So even if it's the same pair of jeans, you're having to see it twice. And analysis paralysis can pop up with that because you're just overwhelmed with the amount of choices that you can have. And so that was also, pretty impactful into how I thought about Everewear in the secondhand industry as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I have swiped out of my story, so I'll have to find that in a minute. But I think it's really interesting because you graduated in 2022. I graduated December 2018. And the way that Kelly has also grown since we've left, I think is really exciting. I know when I was graduating, they were revamping their digital marketing offerings because you have to know digital marketing at this point.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, I think for the first marketing week since I had left, my interns were talking about all the digital ad placements they were learning and all these different things, which I had been learning more about Google Ads. And so I appreciate that as they've had more students who are asking for things, they've also been working really hard to fill that cup in a way that serves the students and the local economy. I mean, we're the business school of downtown Indy, and we get to work with so many businesses. And so I really appreciate that because now I'm having conversations with some of our interns, like Julie, who's talking about her real estate certificate. And they're also starting to serve more in that VC space by offering the venture creation certificate. So I appreciate that we have this ecosystem, as you said earlier, of entrepreneurship where higher ed, downtown, and more folks in that space are able to work together in a way that continues to grow it. Because if you stop at a certain point, then how can you keep going from there?
100%.
All right, I'm pulling up our next question here. Going back to things being scary, things being new, starting a business in itself can be a scary thing. Do you have any tips to just get started?
Yes. So going from 0 to 1 is a huge thing that we definitely talk about in the founders group as well. But just as a larger if you want to start a business, how do you go from 0 to 1 customer?
Mhm.
I think the scariest thing can sometimes be asking your friends and family. You want real feedback, and you don't want them to think that you're like trying to beg them for money in some ways. But sometimes that is what's most accessible to you, and just kind of throwing it out there to see what they say. And if you have something that they can try to, you know, demo it for them, or kind of show a prototype of a product or something, and be able to get feedback that way. The next way that I started to build a customer base, so I had a little bit of a different business model when I first started. I did have a product, and so I posted it on the Nextdoor app, and I got about 25 people just from there. And so that kind of opened up my demographic, and those are people that are still interested in the company today, which is really crazy. But they were just strangers on Nextdoor for a little bit.
Well, they were your neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. um, and then also just showing up at events is huge. Events like this, being able to kind of learn who's in your community. There's so many startup events these days, especially in Indianapolis, that I would definitely encourage you to go
Mhm.
to kind of be able to start finding early adopters. My co-working space that I was a part of was also
Mhm.
a huge factor in that, to be able to get real feedback, and people that were interested in signing up early on.
Yeah.